My special guest co-host, Scott Kaspar, and we're going to go directly to the phone lines for our very special guest who is calling in, someone who was denied an opportunity to finish her well-written speech because there was a 90-second rule, but yet an establishment member later could request additional time, and they granted it, but they did not grant an extension of time for our special guest that joined us live on the line, former U.S. Senate candidate Peggy Hubbard. Peggy, welcome to Mark My Words. How are you?
I'm good, guys. I am on my way home. I'm on the highway. I got my truck, so I'm making it back to Belleville.
Good, and please drive safe. And, I had mentioned, Peggy, that we wanted to provide a platform for you to deliver the rest of your speech, but I also understand that you are driving back home and it's dark outside, and I want you to be safe. But if you can't do that, I just wanted to get your thoughts. I know you had an incredibly popular Facebook Live yesterday, but wanted to get your thoughts on yesterday's State Central Committee meeting.
It shows the disconnect of our party. Our party is so disconnected to what's really happening outside of their bubble, outside of their country club, outside of their establishment. And it's telling how they actually discounted us and how they treated us. And for that gentleman to make a statement and say to us, if you're not donating to the party, then what are you here for? And to me, that was a great disrespect to every person in that room. To them, it's all about money. It's not about our policies. It's not about what's happening in our schools, what's happening in Chicago. People are dying. It's not. It doesn't matter to them that these farmers are losing fertile ground down in southern Illinois, putting up these solar panels, and they're telling us these things are environmentally safe, and we're finding out as soon as they hit the ground, hit the soil, that soil is being contaminated for life. And there's so much that they are so blind to. I mean, for Don Tracy to sit up and say how, and that really chafed my butt when he said that they were reaching out to the black community, to the minority communities. And we know for a fact as minorities, and I read off those names of all of those individuals that the Illinois GOP, like Matt Dubiel, my friend, said, it's missed opportunities. And they're not using and utilizing what they have before them. And this is the reason why the Democrats are handing us our lunch every single election cycle. How many times do you have to lose in order to realize what you're putting forth and what you're representing and what you're putting down is not working for the people? And I was just totally blown away and disgusted by how flippant they were towards us. And it just blows my mind that these individuals that sit in this room wielding this power over us to dismiss us the way they did and disrespect us. Mark, I mean, guys, it is time for a huge shake-up of our Illinois GOP. And I copy and I am very much on board with what Matt said. If this does not change, then what is this all about, and why are we doing this? Why are we allowing this? And it's sad. It really is.
You're absolutely right. Scott, I know you've got a couple of questions for Peggy.
Peggy, you were giving your speech yesterday, and it's not lost on me that as the 90 seconds was approaching, you had begun reading a list of other minority candidates who the Illinois GOP did not support. And I don't know how many were total on your list, but you had rattled off maybe 10 to 12 names when they ripped the mic. Literally ripped the mic out of your hands because they didn't want to hear any more. And it's not lost on me. A week ago, I was sitting in this chair. You were on the phone, very similar to what's going on right now. And I had mentioned that I went to this Illinois GOP establishment elite invitation-only luncheon where Florida Representative Byron Donalds addressed the crowd and told them that they needed to listen to the people who were not in the room. And we witnessed yesterday those words have fallen on deaf ears. They didn't want to hear about the people who were not in the room. And I really appreciate that you drove 397 miles, that you were there. There were so many people in the room that were glad you were there. So thank you for coming. But my question, I suppose, is if you had walked into the room as Don Tracy and you saw 200 people there, what would you have done differently?
Well, first of all, I would have grown a set and owned up to the fact that I messed up. The best politician is a politician that listens. Don Tracy doesn't listen. Mark Shaw does not listen. Robert Porter does not listen. All of these individuals, these masters of the universe, they don't listen. Instead of hanging his head, ignoring us, walking past us as if we did not exist, if you watch Don Tracy in action, he made sure he spoke to all of his never-Trumpers, and he totally ignored us. He did not speak to us. He didn't even look at us. And that's a telltale sign, just like Matt said, of the leadership of which Don Tracy is. When I campaigned as United States Senator, I walked into the room, and you knew I was in the room, and I engaged with everyone, and I still do that to this day. When I was out in that lobby today, and I hit that floor, I was engaged with everybody. I was talking to everybody. I did not ignore anyone because everyone is important to me. And that is something that a leader is supposed to possess. He's supposed to, or she's supposed to show that you are important to me. You being here is important to me. And I'm going to make it a point to engage with you, to speak with you, to shake your hand, offer a friendly hug if it's allowable, and listen to what you have to say. These politicians nowadays, and it's on both sides, it's just not the Democrats, it's the Republicans too. They don't listen, and that's the problem. And Don Tracy does not listen. These elitists that sat around that table and browbeat us and told us we should be thankful we're in the room with them, they don't get it. They do not get it, and that's one of the reasons why we need to put people in those seats that have traveled the state, that have listened to farmers, that have gone to schools and communities, that sat and talked to first responders. Don Tracy doesn't do that. The only thing he does is make it to these grand parties and makes his way around these parties and pat themselves on the back and give themselves these lavish Christmas parties and say, hey, give us money because we're trying to actually do something here. And if you looked at that screen, Scott, and saw how much money he raised, and I said out loud, we didn't get any of that. So where did it go? And Jason Plummer and another gentleman shot their eyes around to me, and they looked at me with such disdain. And I asked the question, so if you got this money, where did it go? Because we sure the hell didn't get a piece of it. And that's the problem. They don't get the fact that we as grassroots are going to be the saviors of this party.